is yours. Thank you.
This meeting is being recorded.
Hello everyone, thank you. Since the last time we did this, there's been quite a few changes at the Belfast Telegraph. This in terms of how we operate, which some of us will elaborate on during the next half hour, but also our ownership. We're now owned by Media House, which has extensive interests across Europe, mainly Belgium and Holland. And in May 2020, as many of you will know, we launched a paywall, and now we already have several thousand monthly subscribers who are paying for our digital content. However, the majority of our content is still free, and as part of our transition to a digital first model, we've hired extensively. And many of you will know of the big name journalists who we have now signed up and who are bringing us exclusive content every day. My colleagues will speak more about the types of story that work best for the sections or the platforms, but by and large, a few do's and don'ts that I would see across the week in my role is not to offer us any stories or releases that have already appeared in print or online by one of our competitors. We're not in the habit of running something that's appeared elsewhere unless there's a new angle. So, and that is happening each and every day. But if you email any of us with a clear and concise pitch and a kind of different or exclusive angle for us, if there is one, send it to the relevant person, and that's probably the best way to pitch. Phoning up to check if we got an email it isn't advisable, because I think we all know that when you can get an undeliverable message if the email didn't arrive, and it's the one thing that is going to really annoy the news desk. If you need to follow up on an email, you could suggest a different angle perhaps, and always remember that pictures and video are key to what we do, and always flag any opportunities for these. Also, interview opportunities and interesting backstories to any people involved. Human interest stories work really well across print and online, as do big interviews and big reads. So if you have got a release on or pitching a story on someone, if they've got a backstory that's not saying if it's a business release or something and they're opening a new business, if they have an interesting backstory, tell us. Anya will explain later on just how that works, but you're more likely to get a much bigger story, and a story I would argue that more readers will buy into and will take notice of, because if it's obviously the business story will go in the business section, but if it's a bigger read, it could go anywhere up the front of the paper. And if there's a video opportunity, we can send out and sometimes video the subject, or else if you've got that ready made, even better. I'd also advise that if you identify the columnists or specialist writers, so they're best to pitch a story to, i.e. know who the entertainment, business, politics reporters, etc. are, because you're more likely to get a reply if they're interested than from a news desk, which is swamped with thousands of such emails every day. I would also say that with newspaper paginations reduced the last few years, and I think that's been right across the board, it probably has never been harder to get a PR release into a paper, and even online, where there's so much competition now. 20 years ago it was so easy to run a lot of PR pictures, but space is at a premium, and that's across print and online. But we still do have space to fill, whether it's in the paper or on one of the sites. So just if you've got something, just get in touch with the relevant person and pitch it. That would be a story that you think people would be interested in reading, and that it's not just a story that you're pitching on behalf of the client, that is something they want into the paper, because we have to have something that our audience wants to engage with. And with that, I'll hand over to Morgan, who can speak a bit about what makes a good story for online and how we have sort of changed the way we work.
Thank you, Martin. Hi, everyone. And yeah, I can't stress enough how important the last thing you said is that we produce newspapers, and we run our websites for our audience, and part of that audience now, they've become our customers, and that's very, very new with the launch of the paywall. That's a big change since we last spoke, as that we now have customers that we have to care and worry about, and that's what we're here to do. So we now have an audience team in our newsroom in Belfast for Northern Ireland titles. That's a model that's been applied across the island of Ireland, and it also is being done by our colleagues in Holland and Belgium. So I lead a team of audience editors, and our job is really to drive online readership. So the engagement, the loyalty of our users. It's what we used to call driving traffic. We curate the website, the homepage, we curate our newsletters, and we build our social audience. So on a day-to-day basis, our job is to make sure the really, really important stories of the day reach the right audience in the right way, at the right time, on the right platform. And we are trying to have different strategies for different platforms. So one day, the most important stories could be breaking news, or it could be some of our long reads and features. It could be really engaging premium opinion piece, or it could be a free listicle on something our users can use. So it really depends on day to day. But remember, and that's really key, that our priority will be how users consume our content and what we think will be of interest to them at that time. So timing is really, really, really important. It's going to be very difficult for us to give a lot of space and prominence, to a press release about a minor issue if there is a massive news story on the agenda. For example, a massive politics story last week, like Dog Biddy, or yesterday, if a lot of time and effort was around explaining to our audience the impact of, the rise in energy costs, for example. The launch of the paywall has changed a lot of how we work because we have to balance traffic and acquisition targets, which we do on a day-to-day basis. And if you want to ask questions about that, I'm happy to answer some of them. But also what's important is that our newsroom has evolved. The last time we spoke, we used to run separate print and digital operations in parallel, but now we have an integrated newsroom. So all content creation is managed by the news desk. And what the audience team does is look after content distribution. So that means we have better content, but also we have a more targeted, more sophisticated content promotion and distribution online. Hopefully you would have seen the impact on this practically, because I think there are fewer instances now of several reporters contacting you about the same story, one for digital and one for print. We now have one reporter assigned to the one story and writing across platforms. Also impact on deadlines for us. You could have fast news reporters, whose job is really to write stories as they happen, and who are going to publish stories as soon as, for example, an embargo expires, like yesterday on the latest energy price hike. Or you could have a reporter getting in touch with you and say, actually, today my deadline is our evening newsletter. Or we could have reporters working on exclusives, which we are going to hold on the website until the next morning to coincide with print. But there are key points for us, for the audience team during the day. So for example, in the morning, my first thing I do is I check that the newspaper is available as an e-paper in our newsstand app. Then we start to worry about our morning newsletter and our morning push notifications. Then we have quick stand-up with our fast news and audience team and a news desk to plan the day ahead. We also work very closely with our colleagues in Dublin, and you will notice on the site that we do share a lot of content between our websites on the whole island of Ireland. And then at midday, we look at the stats, we review, we adjust. Because we now run a premium site, we have a lot more data, a lot more dashboards. So we worry about the content our subscribers read, We worry about the stories who are subscribing, as in who are acquiring subscribers. We worry about the traffic and where the traffic is coming from. So we take a look at how the morning newsletter has performed and plan ahead for the evening. We worry about the performance in search today or on social, and we adjust accordingly. And then, as I say, the afternoon, we start to publish content for our evening newsletter, and we plan for the evening, and same at the weekends. Our newsletters are really, really important. We have about 70,000 people receiving our emails every day. So just I'm going to touch on what makes a good, if I have enough time, what makes a good story from an audience point of view. The one thing I would say, my top advice is think about how you could engage your audience. If it's going to give you a very practical example, today we got a press release from the Department of Health about the fact that now you can add your booster in your COVID cert app, which is great. Instead of running that flat press release, it's now available. The app has been updated. We are telling our users, here's how you can update your app to get the booster information on it. So that's what we called news you can use, and I think we find that really engaging, that users are responding really well to the formats like this, and probably something that can be applied as well in your line of work. But there are other ways that we can engage the audience. Mentioned Bloody Sunday at the weekend. We had a very powerful social video, which on Twitter we used as the main gateway to all our premium content about Bloody Sunday. So the reason why we did that was because by using a thread, that video was very shareable, so it was shared more, and all our premium stories included within that thread then were also shared. There was a really positive sentiment about our coverage. We got schools to retweet our video to their students, and as a result, we performed better than what we had expected. Another example of a story is that how a story can work better as far as the audience is concerned. We run the quarterly Lucid Talk opinion poll. Online, we make sure that we've got interactive graphics just to make sure the audience stays longer, as the ability to delve themselves into the data, that they don't just rely on the words and the analysis, which are very important, but they have access to the raw data themselves that we make available in graphics. Finally, because Martin also touched on it, I would really emphasize that how important it is that we get good pictures, how a story looks visually. It's very, very important. We are trying to use fewer stock headshots, and we are trying to use pictures taken today as opposed to stock photos. I think, for example, today's front page with the use of Claire Bailey's running up the steps of Stormont, and so we only see her back. It's very visual. It worked really well last night online as well. So something to bear in mind. Videos and animations also work really well, especially on social media. And we ourselves we have dedicated resources to make sure we can produce those. So that's it. That's what I can say about audience engagement and how we work today. So I'll just hand over to Anya now to talk about features.
Thanks, Morgan, and thanks very much for having us here today. Hopefully we'll be of some use to you all. Yes, so I work in the features department. We are a small but very dedicated team, and we have quite a massive, I suppose, remit in terms of what we look after. Also, we have the Belfast Telegraph pages, we have Sunday Life, we also have Weekend Magazine, and we look after a little bit of review. So features are very important. They're the kind of bread and butter, I suppose, a little bit once we get past news, business and sport in the paper, but they are very important, and they do offer a different kind of service, I suppose, than what news and business and sport would do. So for me, I spent most of my career working in features. They're about stories that go beyond the facts. So news might say giving a story about a scheme or initiative. We will go behind that and see how that scheme and initiative will affect someone. What are the actual repercussions of somebody involved in the scheme or initiative? How will it affect them? How will it affect the reader who maybe doesn't even know that this aforementioned scheme or initiative has happened? I always see features as kind of like the little side dishes that you order when you go to a restaurant. They're the things that you really want to have and you want to try a little bit of them. And I think that's the beauty of features, that we have so many varieties and types of what we can do, and kind of linking into what both Martin and Morgan said, we are a digital first company. Our priority is making sure that it looks effective on screen, and that it's easily readable and engaging and thoughtful content as well. So when it comes to pitching ideas, absolutely, the more interactive and engaging they can be, the better. We don't necessarily need to have a straightforward piece from someone. It can be an opinion piece, it can be an interview, a Q&A, anything that we can box out, little kind of graphics or infographics, video, any kind of content at all that's a little bit different and unique to us, and then therefore unique to whatever brand or kind of a person you're looking after as well is important. Just like Martin said, we get a lot of press releases in, and a lot of them are very important and useful. And like Morgan says, in turning them around and twisting them to suit what the reader is going to get the most benefit from. But again, not everything can be used, and if you do want to use something, it is about trying to transform it in such a way that will be of benefit and of interest to the reader. We don't necessarily want to read about the same person who's undertaken, however, an amazing kind of scheme or what have you, but we do maybe want to speak to somebody different, maybe somebody who is in the background. And certainly for features, for me, that's what I really enjoy, are the people who you don't get to see a lot of all the time. We have a lot of figureheads and spokespeople, but often there's somebody working in a company for 20, 25 years who has this brilliant backstory, but you'll never get to hear about unless people like us come and ask for interviewees and look for something a little bit different. I would say as well that features is not a catch-all type of the part of the business. It's not a dumping ground for for ideas. It's not a case of go to news or go to business and they're not that keen, so you'll come to us because we'll give a larger kind of insight into things. We might do if it's interesting and if we think it has legs, but more often than not, we'll pick the items, and we have the luxury, I suppose, of being able to pick the items that we think will be most relevant to readers, and that's why we're all here. That's why we work to deliver content to our readers who are willing to pay for it as well, which is a hugely important development. And having worked in a business where almost exclusively people have paid for content, I know how important it is, and how important it is not just to be able to pay for it, but also to get something out of it. I love the idea of somebody reading a feature that we put in and that was going online, it's going in the paper, it's going in the magazine, and they're talking about it when we're all eventually back in the office around our water cooler. And those are the moments that really matter, because for me, features have this ability to amplify a message, and that's super important. And we're now we have this beautiful website, and we're able to amplify it even further because we have our digital team, our audience team, who are exceptional about what they do. But for me, it's always about thinking it's not just what's going on the page, and that's lovely, but it's about how maybe several hundred other people are going to read this and how they're going to act from it as well. I always think features are about reaction. So it's not just a case of reading something and going, oh, this is a particular health story, or, I'm quite sad to hear about somebody's kind of health tale. It's more about, well, I've read this and I'm going to make an appointment with my doctor, or I'm going to speak to my friend or my parent about that, or I'm going to do some charity work. It's about this idea of working. It's almost like working ahead in a sense as well, that it causes you to react and it causes you to feel something and think something. I think that's what the beauty of features are for me, and that's why I love working in them. We have no typical day. We work across in the physical paper close to 100 pages a week in terms of what we look after, and then you can imagine how that amplifies then going online as well. So it's busy. I like press releases by email if they're going to be sent in, much like Martin said at the beginning. there's no need for follow-up call. I'll always come back to somebody. This might take a few days or, you know, a little longer than you would like, but if something can work for us, I'll come back. I'll always try and give a different, we'll always ask for a twist. We will ask for photographs. Yes, we have the luxury, I suppose, of having some excellent photographers, the best in the business, and a brilliant videographer. So if possible, if we can't get photographs from yourselves, we'll absolutely go out there and get them. And we have no problem doing that, because obviously we want our own content that's exclusive to us. And that it's a little bit evergreen as well, that we can reuse in, you know, when and as needed. For me as well, I think it's really important to mention kind of humor. You know, I remember in journalism school, I was told that, you know, features are to entertain and educate, but they're also it's okay to be a bit lighthearted about things. And I think certainly where we live, we're not always blessed with the most lighthearted of news. So that's when features do come in and do play a role in terms of just adding a little lightness, certainly to a physical paper, adding a little lightness to a website, and also maybe to the evening and to the morning emails that are sent out to our thousands of readers as well. So that's basically all I want to say. I think it's important as well just to say that features are a really important part of the company, and it's something that we continually work on and trying to improve in terms of the content that we offer as well. So, you know, I'm not precious really in any way. I don't mind if somebody comes with an idea that I haven't thought of, or a different twist on doing things. I think it's really great to interact with PRs. You know, of course, we get so many different stories and interesting kind of insights from you, but we're always open to having a chat, or, you know, send me an email, see what you think. You know, there's no harm in asking. And in terms of deadline, every day is a deadline. I'm sure Morgan feels the same way. Every minute is a deadline for her. But we try to work a good bit in advance with weekend. Obviously, weekend is all kind of singing and dancing now. It got revamped in April, but it is a very important part of the paper, as is the review. They really add a, you know, bonus to our Saturday offering, both online and in physical. So do, you know, get in touch about that as well. And I think just finally, it's about visibility. It's about increasing visibility in terms of what we do. Our pages in the physical paper might sit towards the back of the paper, but what we offer is very good. It's very strong. We have a collection of very, very great talented writers. So we're very lucky with that as well. But it's important to kind of showcase that, and Morgan and her team do that very, very effectively online. So we're very happy to answer any questions you have, and thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, everybody. That was very insightful and very in-depth. Really appreciate the effort that you've gone into in pulling some of that information for us to get together today. We do have quite a few questions. And first of all, Morgan, one for you regarding the paywall. So in terms of what you decide is premium story and what you decide isn't, how do you make that judgment?
Yeah, so the most important thing around deciding what is premium and what isn't would be exclusivity. So if we feel, you know, a story is unique to us, so a scoop would be premium, an exclusive story that does require a lot of in-depth journalism, and we do try to make the distinction between reporting and journalism that is going to take a lot of time and effort, you know, to do. So traditionally, a lot of our analysis and opinion as well are premium, and a lot of on-news features. But I think it's also important to find the right balance. Now, what's great as well, because it's been we've had the paywall since May 2020, so we now have a lot of data, and we're trying to now, you know, take a look at it and see how it can inform us better. And we are doing two things with the paywall now. We are continuing to acquire new subscribers. So a lot of our subscriptions come from people hitting the paywall on an article and being interested and wanting to read it, and then subscribing. But also we have our, you know, like Martin said, we have thousands of subscribers who are accessing our content, our paid for content every day. So we have to manage both the acquisition and the retention part of it. But exclusivity is the main factor.
Okay, this one is about community engagement, and someone recently had a client decide they didn't want to go ahead with a positive story because they were afraid that if it appeared online or appeared on social, that the public may comment negatively or whatever on it. How would you manage, or how do you manage that? I know you can't manage the public, but at the same time, do you have a strategy for that?
Yeah, so it is a very, very important question. It is one, rest assured, that we discuss a lot and we worry a lot about how our stories are received and perceived. It's very hard, you know, we couldn't moderate, you know, content on Facebook or Twitter because it would require an army of people. But once, there are two things we can do. Once we know that a story is being received very negatively, and sometimes it's how it's being packaged or you know, presented on social media, or sometimes it's just because how people react to the content. But if we feel how the story is received on social media is detrimental to the story itself, then we would, and we have, you know, removed posts which we feel have become an avenue to trolling, for example. You know, this is not something we accept, and you know, we have community standards, and even though we're not necessarily going to moderate, we are not going to accept that post necessarily is used, especially to target a single person or you know. But so that's something that we do. Another thing that we now do, thanks because Facebook has introduced the option, we can decide to control who comments on a post on Facebook, which, you know, we all know is probably the bigger of the problem as far as, you know, all the social platforms are concerned. So we are on occasion deciding to restrict who will comment on a story, and it can be for a variety of reasons. If it's a court story, obviously it's because there are legal implications, but also because we feel, and it's happened as recently as I think 2 days ago for a feature that we decided to make it, we wanted to promote it, but we decided to restrict who could comment, and so basically turn off comments. Obviously it impacts then on the reach of the post, but that becomes secondary.
Okay, thank you very much. Someone is asking about embargoes. Now, I know we've talked about exclusivity and whatever as well, but in terms of embargoing a story, what are your thoughts on that? How do you feel about that?
Well, I think it's okay as long as they are within our time frame. You know, we have had issues where a story has been embargoed, you know, till 8 a.m. or something the next day, but for the printed paper, you know, is probably in the shops from 6 a.m. So that can be a bit ridiculous, where we have to, you know, but we'll often phone up and say, you know, can we have it in the paper that morning? Another thing for the Sundays, we would often get stuff sent to us with a Monday embargo, which I don't even know. Maybe, you know, I you know, and asking, are we going to cover it, even though it's obviously not out until the next day. Well, I think because we have a rolling news operation right across, you know, the week, and with online with digital being the focus, I think that embargoes are less of an issue for obviously for online. But we know, you know, we have key audience times, obviously early in the morning and then later on in the evening. So any stories we put up then, you know, tend to do better, and you know, our weekends are very good as well. It's very rare that you will get a weekend embargo, but I think the issue of embargoes isn't really something that has been causing us much concern of late because of the way we operate now.
Okay, thank you. Pet hates, you said about not needing to follow up on a story that we've sent in or a press release that has been sent. You've talked about exclusivity, but if there is a story, someone's asking here about what motivates the publication of a press release, you know, investment, jobs, sustainability, that sort of thing. But if it is a story that has gone to everyone, are you still inclined, even if it's like, I don't know, a £10 million investment or something, are you still inclined to shy away from it, or would you then look for the other angle?
Oh, no. If it's a big announcement like that, you know, a big current affairs announcement, if you know, it's a business announcement or it's something happening in the world of news, we will cover that just as we would if it was a court case that was breaking, if it was a political thing, you know, if it was Boris Johnson speaking in the House of Commons, whatever, we will cover that as you know, as a rolling news story. Maybe if it's something that has already broken at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday, if we're looking to the paper on a Wednesday, we would be looking to bring it on a bit. So it's whether we speak to somebody else, whether we look at, you know, if it's a major jobs announcement for a certain town or whatever, we maybe look at how that's affected the town. Say, for example, if it was Ballymena, which has had a huge number of job losses over the last probably 5 to 10 years, it's, you know, what that means to the people of Ballymena. And all, we can obviously have angles ourselves to develop it on, but if it's a major breaking story in any of those sectors, it'll obviously go online as soon as we have it. And then we just develop it for the paper, but we're not necessarily looking for an exclusive angle on that. It's probably some of the more minor things as such, that some of the things that maybe aren't quite as gripping to a widespread audience.
Okay, thank you. Video, you have said that you'd like to receive video. Is there any particular format or length, or is there anything we need to be considering whenever we're putting video together for you?
Yeah, I think there are two ways. You know, the first of all, I think Martin mentioned it earlier. You know, if there are video opportunities that we can actually go to cover, that's one way we can do it. But obviously, with resources being finite, it would be good as well to receive more video content, not necessarily, you know, completely. I wouldn't just do something that's really, really overly packaged or overly branded. You know, maybe do make GVs available to us, or clips of interviews, as opposed to, you know, something that you think is how we want to receive it. We might want to be able to just use a short clip on social media, or do a short package for the website. And I would say here I would advise you to contact our visual desk, because they would have tips and about how we like it to be shot, or what to be mindful of, or also formats, obviously just the basic, you know, compression formats we work with. But that's how I would do it. Just maybe don't provide the whole package as you see it, but more bits of video clips that we can then put together ourselves and use.
Okay, thank you. All Ireland coverage was mentioned. Are you keen to cover cross-border stories, having previously been an MI-centric paper?
Well, I suppose we always have covered them, and it's just obviously maybe years ago when we weren't aligned to the Irish Independent as we are now. We've got a bigger pool to take from, and vice versa. If you look at the Sunday Independent, they have now launched a Northern Ireland edition with a lot of Northern content, which is also running in Sunday Life, and is also running on the Belfast Telegraph website on a Sunday. So we're always keen for cross-border stories, and, you know, whether it's big news stories like, you know, the awful murder of Aisling Murphy, or if it's something to do with Brexit, obviously, or if it's some political development in Dublin. You know, realistically, if there's 100 jobs announced in Limerick, or one of the Waterford councils do something that has no relevance really to Northern Ireland, we're probably not going to run that. It's usually a big story that has such an impact across Ireland that, you know, that our readers would be interested in. There were a couple of terrible murder-suicide cases, for example, in Kerry and Cork, I think, which, you know, everybody was fascinated by. You know, and our Dublin office had written extensive backgrounders in that, so that would run on the website, and that ran in print, and it proved extremely engaging. So it depends on the story, but we are interested in cross-border stories. Obviously, you know, there's a lot of crossover, but if it has more relevance to Northern Ireland, particularly if it's outside of a major breaking story or whatever, that would be of more interest to our readers, because at the end of the day, majority of our readers are still based in Northern Ireland. You know, so we have those to think of.
Thank you. Going back to video, do you need to have subtitles added before sending them over? I suppose the answer is no if you're going to edit them, but that would be good to know as well, please.
Yeah, if we're going to edit them, then no. But if you're working on social media, elements that you want to provide as part of your press releases, then definitely having them subtitles subtitled for social is very, very helpful.
Okay. What's the best way to get coverage for a letter to the editor or a personal opinion piece?
Well, I think that is maybe the email address, Martin. Would that be the best?
Yeah, it's best to email in, and if it's an opinion piece that's relevant to something's happening, say someone wants to do an opinion piece and it's relevant to Partygate, or if it's relevant to, say, the turmoil in the DUP or whatever, if somebody it's worth sending an email, and if you don't hear back, and if it is for as soon as possible, if it is time sensitive, it probably is worth giving the news desk a call. But it's email, and if it's clear and concise, and if it's already written up, even better. But I think that it's like everything. Space is premium, so we just I know everyone loves an opinion piece or a column in a newspaper, so we can't give it to everyone. So it's if it's a well-written piece and it's on a subject that we're covering, or a subject that we want to cover, we will get back quite quickly. But email in the first instance, outlining what it is, so it's there in black and white.
Okay, thank you. Any plans for new services or features to be rolled out to readers with the recent changes to the Belfast Telegraph?
And I think we're always trying to, we're always constantly developing and trying to add value to readers, both who are reading it in print but reading it online, and who are paying for the content online. Certainly, yes, there are lots of avenues I'd like to kind of look at in features, just to add something that maybe we haven't done previously, but it's a company decision as well, as much as sitting down and kind of brainstorming, kind of hashing it out, all the kind of different areas you want. But of course, by its very nature, papers and print and digital are all constantly evolving, so you have to match that. You have to meet what your readers are expecting and anticipating, and almost trying to predict what they want. You're almost telling them what they want to do. They don't know they want it until they read it.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully we're coming to the end of these, because I feel like I'm grilling you now. What do you see? Any feature features again, feature stories within business, such as interviews with business leaders, are they still something that you're keen to show and utilize?
Poor Margaret is not here, so I'm not speaking on her behalf. I think so. I think again, it's much like we were saying since the beginning as well. It's finding that different angle, or the story that's just maybe hasn't been given a lot of airplay or any airplay at all, and just focusing in on that. But Margaret is absolutely the best person for this. But I know that if the business do cover interviews as well, and there is that kind of sometimes that divide between business and features in terms of those kind of slightly longer pieces as well, that they kind of cross over in both ways. So yeah, it's absolutely there. I think they can be very engaging if they're done in a way that offers something new and different, and maybe offers something that is kind of particularly of benefit to the reader as well.
Yeah, and I would add as well that we have a business audience, and it's very valuable, and they're very interested in what we do. Obviously, we have the business supplement on a Tuesday morning. We also have a business newsletter, a business weekly digest. So we do have a niche business audience. Obviously, it's not as big as the overall audience of the site, but they're very engaged and very interested. And they both cross over premium and free. So yeah, definitely.
Okay. Does changing the angle for each outlet apply if there's breaking news or a current affairs piece, such as the launch of a public event or cause?
No, I think it's I refer back to what I said earlier. It's that will be announced at the time as a breaking news story, and then if it can be developed for the paper the next day, or if there's a update for the website later that day. It's just keeping the story alive. I suppose that's good for the client as well. You know, if people are pitching stories and press releases, if there is a follow-up opportunity or if there's some way of it developing, it keeps it alive as well, more for the client.
Okay, thank you. And has COVID changed the way you engage with the PR industry?
It hasn't.
Yes, so there's less face-to-face, obviously, like everything. There have been fewer events, and because fewer people have been working in the office now, throughout the pandemic, there has always been at least a handful of people in the office, but I think it's PR companies probably find it more difficulty in getting in touch with us, but you know, we're always there on the end of an email, and I'm sure like everyone else in the weeks to come, there'll be a lot more of us back in the office, but it's more on the attending events and meeting face to face and building those connections. Now, I'm sure anybody who's got involved in PR the last 2 or 3 years haven't had an opportunity to meet any of us probably. So, you know, hopefully that'll change soon.
Okay, that's great. Yeah, I think you've already covered this, but what makes an interesting story and what top tips could you give to ensure a story gets picked up?
And I think it's really literally about knowing your audience as well. You know, kind of having that reader in mind in terms of who you're directing it at as well. Like Martin said at the beginning, going to the right person to make sure that it's in front of them, and that if it's of interest, that they'll come back, you know, as quickly as they can. And it is, I mean, I appreciate it is kind of difficult if you're trying to find a different angle for something because you're looking to get your client in print, online, but, you know, and it's not easy necessarily, you know, but it is about teasing out that, you know, and to be honest, in terms of features, I've had PRs email going, you know, we have a client, we're not sure what angle do you think would be of interest to you? And, you know, given maybe 5 or 6 different little points, and you're not necessarily selecting one of those or 2 or 3 of those, you're not kind of, it's not like a pick and mix, but you might be like, well, actually this bit of it really does interest me, and it would be, we haven't looked after this in such a long time. So I think it's okay. It's always okay to ask. Like Martin says, you might not always get a reply back as soon as possible, but, you know, if it's of interest, people will come back to you. And if it's something that they can do, you know, any kind of piece on, they will react to you as well. We have to react as much as we're looking for people to react to us.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Just seeing one here that has come in through the chat, and it's about education. Do you have a dedicated education supplement, either in print or online? Sorry for not already knowing this, but I'm based in England and new to supporting an organisation with NI work.
No, it's a very good question. So the answer at the minute is we don't, but we do have an education correspondent. And I think maybe COVID has disrupted a bit what we used to do with education. We used to run very popular league tables and transfer tables, and obviously this has been disrupted by the pandemic, but from experience, this works. That content works. It's education, parenting is something that there's a large audience for out there, and definitely something we are interested in. I don't know if you agree, Anya and Martin, but
absolutely. I think parenting parenting and family as well. You know, realizing that, you know, parenting is not this kind of almost traditional setup that we would have expected maybe even 30, 40 years ago. It's very important just in terms of features. It's something we're trying to develop. It's something we're very interested in putting in as well. And again, looking at it in different angles and not just kind of what you'd expect, I suppose, from a parenting feature, or, you know, and in some sort of kind of different ways of engaging. So yeah, people, please do send through anything that you think would be of interest as well. I totally agree with Morgan. I think it's something that's it's necessary. I mean, I think it would be strange if we weren't putting in anything to do with kind of parenting, relationships, family, I think.
Yeah, on education, we will be bringing back those supplements like the league tables, best schools, and stuff around the transfer tests. I think that, you know, we used to have an education supplement many years ago, and a lot of the content that was in it is now scattered throughout the paper. So as Morgan said, Mark Bain has been taken on as education correspondent, and you know, that's his full-time beat. So we're very dedicated to ensuring a lot of coverage of education here.
Okay, thank you. And finally, are you planning any networking events over next year to boost the engagement between yourselves and the industry? We all love a networking event.
I think in pre-COVID, a lot of the networking, I suppose, that we would have done would have been through our own events, such as the business awards, the sports awards, you know, and Spirit Northern Ireland and things like that. Those events should all, touch wood, hopefully come back this year. And you know, we would be keen to do something like this, obviously, face to face, where we can meet people again and where, you know, they put the questions to us and that. But I suppose a lot of the networking we do, yeah, apart from running our own events and that people are at, would be through going to things like you know, top 100 launches and various other PR launches, whether business, consumer, corporate, or whatever. So I think that, you know, I would be very keen in getting our team out and about as much as possible, because, you know, we have appointed a lot of journalists in new roles, so it's keen that they get out as well and build more contacts. And I'm sure that a lot of people on this webinar today would like to meet them, and so that if they do send an email or pick up a phone to somebody, you know, you'll always get a better response if you know the person, because, you know, it's more likely to be noticed, the name or whatever, if you have met somewhere.
Definitely. Well, listen, thank you very much. We really appreciate that. If you are watching today and you do want to contact any of our esteemed colleagues directly and you don't have their contact details already, we will happily share them. We've got permission to share them from the CIPR account. And if you want to claim your CPD points, just go on to the website and do that as well. So thank you very much, everybody. I just want to also say that our next CIPR Northern Ireland event is next Thursday morning, and it's meeting the CIPR presidents, past, present, and future. So thank you all for your time today, and I'm sure your emails will be, your inboxes will be full now after this. Thanks very much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.